dude, I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, and the ladies, welcome back to another episode of The Farm. Sitting down, we got a special episode. You all know when I like to have some of our players and things on as well. Cal, we wanted to have, I'm going to let you give yourself the full intro, kind of some of your background and some of those things here in a second. But also, too, I just wanted to kind of give everybody the understanding of why I thought it would be good for us to sit down and talk. And I think that you've had a truly unique experience, which we've really wanted to do since we moved into the house too as well. But, you've gotten to, and also I don't know if anybody will generally even get your experience from that side, because I don't plan on having anybody else staying at the house for that period of time. For you it makes so much more sense. But you've been here for, first you came for a week, now you come back for a full month and you stayed with us here at the house. You got to shadow the whole time, not only get trained yourself, but also got to shadow while we trained other athletes and all those things as well. So I think it'd be interesting dynamic of what you've learned from, and also too, another thing was you were a remote athlete, right? That kind of was going by just purely remote training in the very beginning, and also your interpretations of social media posts and what you thought. And we're going to kind of dive into a lot of those things too as well. But I thought because of that, you'd be one, I think a lot of people would connect with some of those journeys, those places that you've already been in that journey. Yeah. And also I think you could share that experience that I think a lot of people would not, ever get to experience, and kind of unique insight from that way. So, and anyways, why don't you kind of introduce yourself, kind of tell a little bit of, your backstory, kind of where you're at right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm Cal. I got introduced to the farm system when I was I first started following the farm on social media probably about 13 years old. So 4 years ago about. And then one of my buddies that I kind of grew up with, a family friend, Giuseppe, one of your guys' early clients. Yeah. That was kind of my first real introduction to the farm. Yeah. And then started hitting with him, which was really cool because I'm kind of an intellectual kind of hitter, and so is he. And so getting to do that, we got to kind of connect on a different level or on a similar level. And I got to see kind of just the from an outside perspective of kind of what he was doing when he was hitting. And then I started getting a little more interested, and we started talking, and then from there, that was in high school and then did remote for about 6 months, or did Farm Plus, did remote for about 6 months, and then then was kind of off and on. And then, did
you share too, I don't want to run past this too, is because you kind of in a unique area that you're going up to as well. I don't know how much you kind of dove into that too as well. Is the reason I wanted to bring that up is you're in a place, not that it's crazy remote, but at the same time, there's not many options for schools. Yeah. There's kind of a really tight-knit community, which is, I think, since I've lived a lot of places, that's obviously very different from Las Vegas or something like that, right? Yeah. So the reason I wanted to bring that up too as well is that I know there's a lot of people across the nation and things like that might be in more of these remote locations where they don't have all these resources, or Florida Baseball Armory, or somebody, something in, Arizona or Driveline or something like that, that's similar close. And I think that's majority of the nation, in general. So I also wanted to put that context of, what does the culture or community kind of look like of baseball, back home in general, if someone were to kind of give them a picture.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe I'll just back out a little bit too. Right now I'm playing JUCO baseball. I redshirted last year, came here this summer, and just really getting started. I'm kind of a late bloomer coming out of high school. Really my career is starting to pick up right now. Yeah. But just, so where I come from is Chico, California, smaller town, north of Sacramento. It's more rural. And it is actually there's a solid baseball community in Chico. Yeah. But there's not that same you're not exposed to as much. One of the biggest things I noticed from coming in Vegas, not just from the baseball stuff, but just when I go out and get groceries or this or that. Yeah. And then also when I moved away for college, I moved to more of a urban area.
Yeah.
It's just like there's more variety and then there's more extremes. So like there's more like from the baseball perspective, there's more really good players, and then there's also more just like things you haven't seen, or like there's more variety. So then you get more extremes. You get to see it from a bigger lens. And I think one of the things that I kind of, and that a lot of people get to, and I actually talked to Cody about this, was like they start getting too lost in like the small town, like just this town, you know, what's good for this town, what's this guy doing, what's this guy doing. One of the coolest parts of coming out here was like I got to just like blow out what I thought was like kind of like what my expectations, or like what I thought was like good, bad, just seeing more stuff, you know?
Yeah, the rules. I remember literally like you're saying too, is one thing that people miss a lot from just like experiences of moving away from home. I remember like I grew up in Vegas, as urban as it is, I didn't travel very much. So I didn't have these other perspectives of, you know, like out in the country. Or Chico's very different for me. When I went to, you know, Northern California, even higher than you, right? When I was up in Weed, California, right, in College of the Siskiyous. When I was there, it's like, man, this is like small town, like 6,000 people with school in session. Like there's nobody there. It's like basically Oregon. You're like 30 minutes, 40 minutes from Oregon, right? So trees. I mean, you go behind a football field, you go 5 minutes behind the football field, spin around, close your eyes. You're in the middle of the forest. You have no way to, you know, how to get your way out, right? Like it's a very different environment compared to how I grew up. Also, too, I was telling a parent the other day, is I remember growing up and I was like, man, like, even social dynamics are very different, as you mentioned. There's just not as much diversity in some of these smaller towns. Everybody's very similar how they grew up. They know the same people. They have the similar experiences. They had similar jobs, similar opportunities, all these things where, you know, again, like I remember when I was even growing up, when I would see like racism or something on TV, I'd be like, what are you talking about, right? Because it's so diverse. Like Vegas is a melting pot of everybody's moved here. My whole family's from San Jose. I was the only one that was born here. Again, I grew up in these neighborhoods where it's like, you know, everybody, like, I'm like, I don't experience any of these things. And then when I started moving across the country, you get all these different experiences where even when I went there, okay, that was one experience. But then I moved to Arkansas, right? And okay, well, that's a crazier cultural shift, especially I was Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Then I went to Kansas. Then I went to Texas. Then I went to Utah. Then I went to SoCal, like, you know, and then SoCal and NorCal is, I would even mention like where you guys are, maybe just north of actually, like if you look at the geometry, like or geographic locations is more of like just, you're really like just north of center of California. When Northern California is a massive state, and it's very vertical, obviously, in that same standpoint. So when a lot of people say Northern California, they really mean like the central, you know, geographic location of California. And but it's crazy how different those social dynamics are compared to like SoCal or, you know, with that, right? So a lot of people, I just want to bring that, especially if you're listening from like the East Coast or it seems so normal to us because like you're obviously from California, so you're like, duh, you know? But at the same time, someone that's on the East Coast or in the Midwest, a lot of times when someone says NorCal or they just think, oh, you're from California, they just think they're thinking LA. They're thinking, you know, San Francisco even. And even that, right, is like San Francisco is like really like central. Like it's slightly, you know, above, but it's at the same time, it's not like, you know, when you get up there, you're basically almost in Oregon.
Yeah, when people say NorCal, they're almost saying like not LA, basically.
Yeah, 100%. So like agreed. Not San Diego. Not, you know.
There's a lot more, there's a lot of diversity in the towns and the structures in California.
Yeah, like you would go out to where he lives, right? And it's like, it definitely has, it's not like there's not a city. Chico's a decent sized city up there, right? But at the same time, I mean, like you're in farmland, like there's hills and you might not see somebody here for the next 20 minutes when you're driving, right? Like it's because of that, there's a lot of towns. And if you haven't got to explore the United States, a lot of the United States is like that, where if you grew up in a city and you're not used to that, where there's, you know, a gas station every other, you know, block down the road, you know, and you're used to just being in the city and everything being open till 11 o'clock at night, or like when I'm in Vegas, it's a 24-hour town. I'm used to be able to get in food whenever. And then I was up in Northern California and when I was up in College of the Siskiyous, like, yo, they're rolling up the sidewalks at 5 o'clock. Like it's like ain't nobody working, you know? So it's just a much different environment. And I also wanted to put that because you come from more of generally what a lot of people that don't live in these bigger cities experience. And also because of that, that exposure of baseball and training and all these things, you can almost get that, you know, big fish in a small pond thing where it's like, yeah, that player is really good, but comparatively, right, like you said, there's extremes where it's like, yo, like, well, this guy's Bryce Harper, or this guy's, in Vegas, like that's how I grew up. It's like, yeah, you have Harper, but like you said, there's also a ton of players that aren't very good, and some kid from that town might be way better than that kid from here too as well. So
yeah, I think you can get like in relation to kind of like my views on the farm system or any other type of thing, like in that kind of like smaller area, like driveline, this or that, is like when you can kind of get lost in like feeling like that town is the whole world, and feeling like nobody does that, like, and just blow it off. But the amount of like I guess like growth that's you're capable of when you can like expand out of that. Like honestly, getting out of high school was amazing for me, just because I could kind of like escape from like previous like patterns I felt like I was living in my life, or like especially related to baseball. Because I could just like see other things different ways and not like be stuck in like just the comparison of what's right in front of me. And so like getting out was just huge.
This context too, right, you said, right, is like you don't get diversity in thought, and also you have some major influencers where it's like, for example, like you guys got 2 major high schools, right? And it's like you either play here or you play there, and then there's obviously 2 baseball programs, and it's like, okay, and then there's only a couple prominent club ball organizations that you can play with. So because of that, it's like there's all these similar thoughts. And then also as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also a lot of guys that are up there that you would be shocked, but there is a good group of guys up there that used to play pro, right? And then now they're the coaches out there, but a lot of them are very similar in thought. They grew up at the same times. They came through the league at the same times. They have a lot of very old school mentality, kind of doing a lot of you don't have this more nuanced, cutting edge, data, technology, all these other things. It's like, don't get me wrong, there is some wisdom pulling from those things as well, and great resources that you're able to have. There's plenty of towns that don't have a big leaguer anywhere close that's coaching. But at the same time, it is a culture dynamic that is specific to where you live, that is very different and many ways, and also different aspects, right? Which I think is huge.
One of the things too, like the small town, kind of like the pro guys or whatever, they have experience, but it's like, because it's so easy to just get lost like right where you are, they're not pushing for more. They're not like trying to really find like, here I would say this is cutting edge. Like you guys are constantly testing the limits for like, what can we figure out? What's new? What are we missing here? And I think in the smaller town, it's easy to just get caught up in like, well, I'm just doing not what everybody else is doing, but I'm just comparing myself to that. And I'm not really like pushing the standards. And then, so for me, like, and for a lot of my buddies and stuff, like seeing on social media and just from like
social media is a game, like it was crazy because it gets you out of your town.
Exactly.
You can people are doing these things
without having to, but for my buddies, at least, is kind of like, you get this thing of, from like the business side of the farm, or like getting clients or like getting people to kind of like test their own knowledge, and coaches too. It's when you get stuck in that kind of like that smaller town feel, it just feels like, no, that's way different than whatever anybody else does. That's wrong, or that's not it. That's not it. Like, that's not, because you're so used to like, this is the way. So I think that's a big piece, is like, versus like in Vegas, now it's a little bit less, but I would imagine, I mean, there's 10x the amount of people. There's way more high schools. It's easier to find your like, is it niche or niche?
Yeah, niche.
To where the people that like, to where you can like experiment with different beliefs and like, or like how you train or how you want to train. There's
more
different hitting coordinators. So you can, and it's the same reason, like I went to a really small middle school in like my freshman year of high school. And then I ended up going to the bigger high school in Chico. And that was one of the things I found, was like, I could get a better friend group because there was way more options. So like,
for sure.
You get so lost in just like the small town feel, you can just only pull from that.
Agreed.
So like, for the farm at least, I think it's easier to like pull like people from bigger areas, or where they're right next to drive lines. So like, okay, this is similar to drive line, let me check this out. Versus like I just think it's different. But the social media aspect is the huge piece that I think is like changing the game in that sense.
Yeah,
you know?
no, and also too, the other thing is that, again, culture elements that a lot of people don't think of with Vegas is Vegas culture is also very different because Vegas is innovative, right?
Yeah.
Vegas is always pushing the limit because they need people to travel here, right? And it's a tourism destination, right? Where when I grew up, they were pushing production, they were pushing entertainment, they were pushing, you continuing to get better and better and better. We just as a culture, no matter what industry that you're in, is because Vegas is as a culture is known in that way, where there is a lot of diversity, there is a lot of options, there is a lot of different salesmen, there is a lot of all these other things, and I think. Again, that really affected also too is what I'm growing up and how it molded me, which was in that mindset that one, it's possible, right? I got to grow up seeing that it's possible from here, how people went about it, and also too, competition is also very different where they're willing to push it. So then you're willing to push it, right? So all those things are, things that all kind of come into the dynamics of molding like who you are, right? And I think that some of that diversity, me going to multiple different colleges and different levels is something that was like, big and helpful for me too as well. Yeah, so when you said that with like social media, why don't you kind of touch on that of like your perception of just purely from social media comparatively to being here and what that that as well.
Definitely. So at first, like I think there's also this idea like partly from like the same type we're talking about, the small town stuff, is like if you don't want to be doing like too much or doing something way different, because then it's like everybody's like, well, what are you doing? Like nobody does that, and so it's kind of like obviously my first instincts, like, so basically I followed on social media as like the first thing I did. Then I kind of like experimented a little bit on my own. Then one of my actual kind of like mentors, you could say, he got drafted by the Red Sox, and then I learned a ton from him, talked to him a lot, and he kind of learned some like big league hitting philosophy. Like he was around minor league hitting coaches and guys that knew the body better and weren't just like hitting, like just swinging, Yeah. And so
taking my rounds of BP and I got my work in today and I'm going home.
Yeah. So like he started to kind of like understand a little bit more of the movement side of things, and then a lot of the stuff started to correlate. And obviously the first thing, and people love to like over focus on like the kickback or the scissor, like really that's just a minor piece, but like that was the first thing in my mind because he like told me about that a little bit. Like that was a piece of his swing that changed, was like, getting it against his front side and letting his like stopping his hips or whatever, just things like that. And so that was my first thing, was like, oh, it's the kickback, like, or it's the scissor. Yeah. And so then I'd look on Instagram, it's like, but they do it. It's like, I don't know. When you're so used to seeing a swing a certain way, like, when you see, but like versus here, it's like when you constantly push for 1% better over time, you're so far from what everybody else was doing when they were just focused on the thing that they were used to, you know? Because when you, over a period of time, it just compounds. And so that's why it looked so different from where I was at the time. But then as I started following, and then I originally rekindled my kind of started hitting with Giuseppe, who is my friend that's trained here. And then I really started, so then I got a Farm Plus membership, and I called Taylor for the first time, and then and then started really watching those videos and starting to understand. I remember I watched the first thing was the 9 essentials of hitting, or whatever that early course was, the basics, and all of it started to click, and I was like, hey, it's cool. And I remember having some conversation with my dad, because as for most, my dad was kind of help me with hitting at the start, you know? And so, and he was always like to hear stuff about creating force or things like that. And he thought it was cool. So that was kind of, then it started to pick up. But I mean, at the time I was still like my driver's license still reads 5'4", 120 pounds. I was still really not even because I think part of puberty too is mental, you're just maturing a little bit. So I wasn't even really to that point at the time. It was just really experimenting. And then once I started to mature a little bit more physically and mentally, started hitting with Giuseppe more, and then started opening myself up to and then also started talking to that same guy from the Red Sox, got drafted by the Red Sox, started to really open up my kind of circle of who I was spending time with, who I was hearing information from. and then it started to like really start to pick up. But yeah, that's kind of like where that how I got introduced to the farm, and then from there.
So and I know one of the things too that you mentioned the other day was like, man, like, you know, you see, and you still even do this now where you're in sessions, right? And you're hearing us talk to a different athlete. And one of the things that I like to talk about too quite a bit is like watching things on social media. Is it's kind of like going like on WebMD, and you're like, oh, I have these symptoms, and then it says, oh, you must have heart failure, you know, or you must have this, right? And it's like, well, yeah, there's some overlapping symptoms. Like my nose is runny, and you know, there's whatever, right? Yeah. There's some other things, but at the same time, you know, again, not everything is for everybody, right? Yeah, I know that you've been in the cage and you've heard Cody or me say the exact opposite things to different hitters, and say like, you know, is there overlapping things? For sure. Yeah. But also too, there's things that I would only give this hitter and only give that hitter, and if they hurt each other, or again, like you've got an opportunity not only just to train, but hear us train other players and been there for, and not just a couple, but like a good amount of hitters now that you've been here for that period of time, where you get to have that experience that usually only our hitting coaches get to experience. And when they're shadowing, is that, you know, it's not just, oh, like, you know, you might hear something on social media and then you go to do it, and it's like, it might work for you, or it might be awful for you, right? Or your interpretation of what I was actually talking about. And then it's just like if I gave you a cue and how you interpret that and how you're removing, it's like, well, I might change the cue even though I just gave it to you 2 seconds ago, because I don't like, you know, how, like, again, your body and you interpreted it, and it's not given the effect that I, you know, thought it might work. And we might completely change drills. We might completely go a different direction. And on social media, you know, you just get a little
sneak peek.
Yeah, sneak peek, right? Of like, oh, in a session, I did this with an athlete, and then this worked in this 90-second reel. You know, and I think that you've had that experience of kind of seeing that. I know you mentioned that the other day, so I was going to give you I wanted you to kind of open that up, where you're like, man, on social media, you know, or again, through the ways that I perceived it, you know, before, like, these are how I kind of like thought these things happen comparatively. Now you've actually sat in sessions, and not just with you, but all these different athletes, and kind of gotten to see the experience. So what would you say from that dynamic? Like, if someone that hasn't had that experience, what would you say from perceiving it on social media to what your experience has been since being in person and watching the training? Yeah,
I think first is like everything is super like individualized. Well, from a broader lens, the coolest part I think of getting to like feed while like Cody or you're training somebody is that, and I felt the same way. I redshirted at my college last year. I felt the same way. Was like I was involved enough to where I saw the details and the depth, but I was detached enough to where my perception didn't, like, when I hit, I'm not as like able to connect dots because my ego's involved in it, you know, like, or my, like, you know, versus when I get to see it from an outside lens, or like inside, but detached just enough, you know, to where I don't have any responsibility or skin in it, but I can like really start to connect dots better. But the biggest thing that, especially like with Cody, because it's more with the younger kids and stuff, is like it's person first. Like, he needs to understand where they're at. So like something that he says to them is everybody's at a different spot along their journey or whatever they're going to play at. And so like, and it doesn't, regardless of age, like there's younger kids here that have been training here for 3 years that blow me out of the water in terms of like how to go about training and like how to go. Because that's I think one of the biggest things too is like, it's not, a lot of the cues aren't necessarily about the actual moves themselves. They're about like how to go about it. Like, so that was like a big thing for me. Just overall was like the biggest things I learned wasn't so much like the actual cues themselves or like the actual moves themselves. It was more like, how do I go about like getting myself better, or like how do I get better at getting better? You know what I mean?
Like the mentality.
How do I like accelerate my learning curve almost? Like make it easier to grow. And so like understanding it from that lens, less so of like, oh, this in a swing is good, this in a swing is bad. It's like, it's a whole like process. And like Cody, you're not just looking at the body, you're understanding like where the kid's head's at, especially and Cody said this too, like the younger kids are actually easier to learn from because they don't have as much of like a filter. They don't tell you what you want to hear. They aren't biased to like anything. And so you can really see like the pattern that it follows. And it's really like about figuring out, okay, where's this athlete at? Or like, what do they think is right, wrong? What are they doing what makes them tick, just things like that. And then understanding that what's going to cue them to get them where you want. And so it's like, if I used to just see it on social media and think, okay, this is good, this is bad. But then I'd see something the next day that it's like, well, it's a little different. And so I think that's the challenging piece, is you have to understand like yourself, and then also just like everybody's at a different point. But I think that was the coolest part of like feeding, was getting to see, like I could see myself in people where I felt like I'd been through that stage a little bit. And then I could also like, getting to see the more experienced hitters like Paige or Chewy, like people that have been where I plan on going, like playing professional softball,
Josiah,
Division I baseball, whatever. Josiah,
even
Josiah's
younger
than me, but he's played serious baseball, and then also has been training here since he's 12. Like, and he's just is a really good athlete. Like, seeing guys,
and even too, and just to give some context there, the reason I brought Josiah up is like you, specifically, is even for me, is athletes like him. He's a high schooler. You'd go, oh, like for example, I played at a way higher level right now at this point in my life than Josiah has ever played. But at the same time, Josiah, how he thinks, he has how he processes information, how he, all those things, like what makes him perform at that level that he does, even at the level that he's at, is like, again, a lot of times you can pick up those, and again, because I have trained some of the most elite hitters in the world, right, is I'm able to identify those and certain things and go, hey, like, he's different, and also too, this is why he can perform at the level he is, because of how he processes. And I, again, from that, if I can learn from that, as all the guys that I've trained and all the things, if I can learn from him, then obviously someone too, if you have this bias where it's like, well, I'm in college and I'm a Division I player, and this is some high school kid or doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, you're not an elite learner from that way, right? Where it's like, again, if you're around and you pay attention, there's a lot of things you can pick up and learn from his mentality or his intentions, or how he processes failure, or how he processes too, like getting better and like not getting something, and through these different seasons. And so the reason I also wanted to point that out too is like a lot of people immediately, especially if you grow up in a smaller town or some of these other things, they can have this thing where it's like, well, I'm older, I'm the senior, they're a freshman, and it's like, 100%. Dude, like again, if you're just not paying attention, because there's always something in these guys that you can pick up on, and again, they're influencing me. So if they're not influencing you, you're just not paying attention.
Yeah, you're cutting yourself off from like possibilities of like to grow or learn. Yeah. Like everybody can learn something from everybody. Like I forget, there's like an analogy, like even the rich millionaire that's got a million things on his plate can learn something from the homeless man who's mastered stillness. Like, like you can, if you're really like conscious of like, and that's the same thing of why it was so cool to see each athlete come in the cage, is like, you can see the whole process, because it's like each person almost like fills a little piece in the puzzle of like looking at the big picture. So you can like learn different pieces from the whole thing. Because
if you only see, like you mentioning, if you only see just all college players, you're going to have one perspective. Yep. If you only see all youth players, you're going to have one perspective. So a lot of times you'll hear a coach that only coaches club ball, and this is why he thinks the way that he thinks, right? Like, well, I got to build the athlete, and if he's just athletic, then everything's good. And it's like, yeah. But at one point, look at the high school kid. I only coach high school. Everybody's got to get stronger, and they're just not in the weight room yet. And then you get to college, it's like, dude, there's like law of diminishing returns. It's not just get in the weight room and move as much weight as I can. I've had some of the guys, college coaches, will be like, yeah, I constantly will do polls. Every once in a while, I'll throw out a poll, and I'll be like, high school coaches, how many times is your strongest player your best player? And it's like how that's slated the opposite way. You always think, oh, my strongest player is going to be my best player. It's like, no, when you get up in levels, especially in college, it's often not the case. It's almost never the case that your strongest player is your best player. And that's one of the things where, again, people develop these biases because they only have experience with a very small population. Where, again, like you're mentioning, is you've gotten to see a lot of different levels and us coach a lot of different levels and different people at the same levels, where there's diversity within just that class or where they're at, or, in that stage as well, which is big. And then also too, style differences, right? Where me and Cody might get to the same place, but in a different way. Yeah. He's a different human than I am, right? Sure. And we have different relationships with the athletes in a different way. He's going to communicate in a different way than I'm going to communicate. And sometimes he would be a better coach for them just because of how he matches up with their personality, or I might be a better coach, or they might need a different coach at a different time, right? Sure. There is a time, where it might need my influence, or it might need his influence, and you're a team in that way too as well, of like, they might need to the best thing for them right now would be before they get here every day, they might sit down with Taylor for 25 minutes, and that is major impactful at this season in this stage in their life comparatively to another time. It's like, man, today it'd be great for them to be with Cody, or it'd be great for them, to be with me. And I think that flow or that influence is also big as well. So I wanted to kind of bring that piece up as well, because you mentioned before we kind of talked about that too, is I know you've gotten to not only just be here in shadow, but you were not just shadowing Cody, you've gotten to be with me too as well. So, maybe kind of just speak to that too, where you've gotten to see that also different like teaching styles and, different humans and like how,
for sure,
putting different things.
I think the difference is like when I get to see it all versus when I'm actually training, which is important, is that like when I'm training, I want originally coming in here, I wanted to have like a really hands-on approach. Like I wanted to know and I wanted to understand it. But one of the biggest or the coolest things, we just had that conversation the other day about like unconscious incompetence. Like you don't know that you suck. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And so like understanding that and like the ability to like be uncomfortable a little bit of like not knowing or not understanding or not, because that's where the growth happens, is like with that little bit of like discomfort or whatever. But getting back to what you're saying is I'm sorry. Well, I'm
specifically like coaching from Cody and me and seeing different styles and like coaching hitters and stuff too.
Yeah, I think like everybody's gonna need something. Like you guys can say the same thing or mean the same thing, but it comes off a little different to where like you may need to hear it in a different way. Like sometimes, like for me, like I felt like I was Cody was trying to cue me the same things or like get me to do the same things. But it's like, finally that 11th try or that 11th one, that one clicked. Yeah. And so having that kind of like diversity, and it goes back to the same thing. Like, can you spread your like circle to see who you're like getting influence from to like really get to like pick down of like what's going to be best for you, because it might not hit from that cue, might not work from Cody that one time, but then you walk in the room and you go, hey, try it this way. And I go, oh, okay. Or vice versa or whatever. It's like, it's not going to always click the first way because we're so like, I don't know, we're such complex, like our thinkers, everybody is, that it's not going to like match up right away. It's like, you got to like, it's like trying different puzzle pieces to fit that one little segment.
Now you're getting on a big note here too, is like another thing with it is like, if you've ever read the same book multiple times but pulled different interpretations, right? Where it's 100%. Like, at one point, right, I read the book and I read it and I thought I got it, and then the next time I read it, I'm like, oh man, like that's really deep, or that's insightful, or that's this, or whatever. And I think that's one of the things too as well. It's like you can hear the same information, but it's also, am I in a place where I'm able to receive this message? Yes, the tone matters. Yes, the coming from the right person matters. Yes, are we in a relationship where I'm able to accept that from you right now, where, if it came from my brother, I would listen this way, or if it came from my brother, I wouldn't listen. If it came from my dad, I wouldn't listen, or, with that, right? And so sometimes like you'll hear dad say that all the time. It's like, well, I know they needed to hear it from you, right? Because like dad becomes white noise in certain scenarios. Yes. Well, it's the same exact way in that way is too as well. It's like sometimes you may even just need another person to say the same thing, right? Where it goes from, knowledge to like belief, right? Where it's just like, well, if everybody, like one time we had back when I was working at another facility, what we used to do was we had a guy would hit and we would all say what we see, right? And one of them was a hitting trainer, and he was hitting, and we all said what we see. And he would look at his own swing and he would never see that. But we went one by one. We had 6 guys all say the exact same thing without communicating. We all just wrote it down, what we said. And he was like, all of a sudden he was like, well, dang, like of all 6 of you, like, maybe I'm the one that's missing what I'm seeing, right? And again, in that same way, like where I might need to hear it from a bunch of different people, right? Before, it just, if I'm only hearing it from one voice and that's the only perspective, the only time if I always get told I'm just the greatest, for sure, right? And then someone tells me I'm not, Well, the first time I hear it, I might be like,
Yeah.
Okay, that's your opinion or whatever. But if I, all of a sudden, the opposite way, right? There's all these other people telling me, like, hey, like there's just things you need to work on. It's like that's obviously a different way of like, in pulling it in too. And also too, you got to be in you might be in a different mindset, right, or a different headspace where or a different heart condition that something can take in, or you try to do it three other ways. And by trying to do it these three other ways, it didn't completely shift your perspective, but it gave you just enough.
Yep.
You felt it, but not consistently.
There's so many variables like that it could be, you can't tell exactly, like it could be dependent on the day to day too. Like that's why it's one of the most frustrating things as a hitter. Like the thing that felt like gold yesterday that was like so money, the next day feels foreign. Like it's like, well, what was I thinking? What was I doing? You try to write it down, but you're in a different state. You're always growing and evolving. But that's why I think like from a broader perspective, like just in life and like especially in sports, being able to like open your mind, which is one of the toughest things to do. It's easy to say, but it's like you don't realize what you're so focused on or what you didn't realize, like because you're just a product of your environment at the end of the day. And little kids are the best example because they are extreme examples of just a product of their environment. They aren't super conscious yet to where they can like actively rewrite what they're trying to do. They're just exact products of like what they're told and who they're around. And so I think just like in a broader perspective, and that's why it's been super cool to like learn from you and Cody, because you guys are like honestly top tier at being able to like detach from, is this right? And like actually explore what's going on and not just like get stuck on like, well, this worked last time, you know? And then also from a broader perspective, like, as me as a player, what I plan on doing or what I desire to do in my career, it's like, I know like if I'm going to be a big league all-star, I'm not going to be the same dude sitting here on this couch. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to have to go through a real transformation the same way that 2 years ago, I look at my senior year high school self and I go, man, like I was so different or I didn't understand so much. And so it's like, if you understand, like I'm trying to get to this, like basically a brand new person or being that like understands things in all different ways, well, then I probably need to open up my mindset a little bit and try to like pull from different resources as much as I can. And like, and the hardest part, and I've had some talks with one of my best friends recently, like the hardest part about that is like, it's really uncomfortable because we get like so stuck on like who we are, who we think we are. We want to like perform to or like act accordingly with an image or like who we thought we were or like what's safe, what worked last time. Like, or because we could be wrong. We could go all out. We could, like challenge something and then be wrong and then we're lost, And it's like, but that is actually where the growth lies. Like, and so that's something that I kind of like, I've understood really, really well over this last month. And just to like preface this whole month, like, I feel like I've grown 3 years as a person in 1 month, like just because of that exact idea is that like, I'm getting exposed like rapidly to so much new information and then so much new, like it would be different if I was just taking a course, but I'm seeing it applied every single day between a brand new hitter every time for 6 sessions, 8 sessions a day. So it's like, it's really incredible. And at first it was like, dang, these days are long, but then now it's like these days are like diverse. Like you have to, seeing Cody work is really cool too, because he's so like human first too. Yeah. Like, but just like from a life perspective, like if I want to become this person, or if I want to get really good at something, or if I want to become like the greatest in the field, and like the video you posted the other day of like athletes continuing to like pursue more like that competitive edge, that dog in whatever they continue to do. And so it's like, if you want that in your life, well, you got to expose yourself to things that you didn't know were possible a year ago. And that's the only way that's going to happen. So like, that's the coolest thing for me is like, if I want to be a big leaguer, I'm going to be a drastically different person than I am right now. Yeah. So like when I look at like failure or challenge or things that don't feel just right, that's actually like the road signs to success, not the like warnings to failure.
For sure. Yeah. Like don't defend your position. Like your position right now is not what you want to defend. Like again, like you said, who I am today is not going to be that person that I'm becoming tomorrow. So why am I sitting here defending, where I'm at and all these other things like, okay, do you want to be right? Right? Or do you want to get them results?
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I always challenge myself, you know, too, with it. And again, I'm a human like any other person, right?
100%.
I'm not saying that, again, I'm completely removed from conviction that I have in certain things and what I've experienced or X, Y, and Z. But all the time, it's always this refinement, right? Which is, you know, again, you can sit there and defend why you're right, or you can figure out what's going to help this player get better. And that's what has pushed me to learn all these things. I had no intention of learning biomechanics and getting into, you know, all these, like, again, like I got a dang, we have a running joke, like at the bedroom, it's like we'll call it, when I go over to my bookshelf, it's like going to Amazon, you know what I'm saying? Or going to the bookstore. Like, you know, it's just, I just got, you know, like, what are we reading today? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, but again, that is not, and I'm not doing that as a flex. It's to learn, it takes a degree of humbleness of recognizing that you are not that.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to recognize that you don't know all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the first, again, even like biblically when it says the same thing, is like, you know, like the first, you know, a piece of wisdom is knowing what you don't know, knowing that you don't know, like, and assuming that you don't know.
Yes.
Because if you did know, if you think you're the greatest communicator in the world, you're not going to learn about communication.
Yeah.
And you're not going to refine your communication, and you're not going to try to get better because you're the best.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody should learn from this.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, man, like I'm around people all the time that know, right? I just did a interview with a biomechanist the other day, and the same thing too. It's like, she knows plenty of things I don't know, right? And also too, I'm going to know things that she doesn't know.
You're different,
right? Yeah, we're different experiences. We apply things differently. She's got a different skill set than I do.
Yes.
There's certain graphs and biomechanical readings that she's going to be much deeper at. But at the same time, again, instead of that being insecurity, right, which is like an emotional trigger where it's, especially if it's rooted in a place of status, you know, where it's like, well, this challenges that I'm smart or I'm worthy or I'm, you know, all these things, which is a big part as well. Like I said, is great. You have all this psychological surface level things with it. But one of the things that might be really holding you back from performance, and that's why I know you've gotten to sit in some of my sessions and also been part of some sessions where like there's times where I'm like, I'm getting in somebody's ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was one of my first like sessions with you, was like, but it was, I talked to Jim about this, was like, that was like the most beneficial one, because that forced, like, I thought this was the way. Like, I thought I needed to look at the video. I thought I needed to understand it. And then it was like, you would, and that's the same thing of like having feel with the athlete. Like if you would have kept trying to just cue me there, like, try this. But no, it was like, dude, you got to stop listening to your old pattern. You don't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And at first I was like taken back, like, dang, like, I wanted to go this way, and I was like attached to like how I wanted it to go, you know?
For sure.
But it was like, and now I see it from a different lens of like, that was just understanding on your part of that's what I needed to hear at the time. Yeah. And it's it's just, it's like understanding that whole lens. Yeah. But the toughest part is what you said at the start was like, and in no way am I saying that I'm perfect or that I have myself figured out or whatever, because the toughest part is is that you don't know what you don't know. That's the hardest part. So you have to like, in order to expose what you don't know, you need to seek out new experience. That's why for me, one of the coolest pieces of coming here was I got to go to church on Sundays with you. That's something that's never been a part of my life, but it's opened up all these doors, not just like spiritually, but just the way that I mean, the Bible's a huge wealth of knowledge just about life, you know? And so like, those are just like things that expose me to, just like new ways of thinking, or like, different perspectives. And it's like, and if I think like Paul Skeens has a quote he said in front of like a team he was talking to, and was like saying like, you should be reading, like there's no excuse to not have a 1,000-year-old mind. And like, it's something that really resonated with me. I like to read a lot, and that's one of the easiest ways to like how can I make it appear that I've lived 1,000 years and been a big leaguer 10 times over. And that's by like, I need different opinions. I need to seek out, honestly, stuff that makes you uncomfortable. Like for me too, like one of my closest friends, like I was so pumped to come here, but it was also like I mean, we met for a couple hours before that, and I was going to come live with you and like just not really be surrounded by, like usually I would be with college kids BSing and stuff. Yeah. And then I had to like get thrown into an environment where I really wasn't, like I talk to my parents every couple days, and then but I wasn't seeing a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that were my same age, or the people I spent a ton of time with.
Yeah.
So forced development, but it was also uncomfortable at the start. It was harder to feel super comfortable. I had to rapidly refigure out how am I going to navigate this.
Yep.
And so, but it was one of the coolest experiences I could possibly do. But it was uncomfortable, and that's what I've started to learn is the more it feels not right, that means there's growth on the other side. If you just keep doing the same thing and it feels good, there's no growth there.
Yeah, it's very comfortable. Yeah, and I really had to do that too, where it's for example, it's I was telling someone the other day, I lived in 7 states in 10 years, and no family, no friends, and a lot of times I go to school, I didn't know a single person at the school. It was an opportunity, and I go, right? Or I go to environments that were really uncomfortable, different cultures, all those other things. But I also think on the same side of that is those were some of the biggest experiences, and also taught me that the confidence of I can go to different environments and adapt, right? And because also too, right, you're in the big leagues. Yo, I'm telling you, you've been on this team for 5 years, all this thing. You get a phone call and you're in a different city, and everybody's moving.
Crazy.
Everybody, all your friends, the dynamics are completely different on this other team, all that stuff, and it's they have to rapidly adapt all the time. And again, it's often, I think, on the other side of that is, and you got to be also from that, to be one of the biggest things that I had to do as a coach too, and I literally continually read books about this, is that you got to have the courage to be disliked. You have to go against the fabric.
I read that book, The Courage to be Disliked.
Yeah. You have to have the fabric of going against your natural instinct, which is community, acceptance, all these other things. Because when you're walking that way, or for example, in that moment, right? If I was a younger coach, I probably wouldn't have pushed back. I probably would have been and I've had to learn to do that with MLB guys and how to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's also in a thing too as well where it's dude, it's and with the MLB guys specifically, they're not your boy.
Yeah.
This is millions of dollars. This is their life. This is how they feed their family. They could literally be released next year and it's over.
Yes.
Right? So if I just let them do and run it however they want to run it, but I know and I truly know that what they're doing is not going to lead to results,
yes.
And then I sit there and I affirm it, right?
You're doing them a disservice.
Yeah, I'm doing you a disservice. And if I actually care about you, I have to be willing to piss you off or to upset you, right? Because at least then, okay, at that point, if you're not willing to hear it and you're ready to go other things, okay, that's one thing. And again, I'm not saying that you blatantly disrespect somebody or these other things, but being assertive of being hey, and even, in our scenario, right? It's well, I said it 5 other ways first, right? And then got to the point where it's no, well, it's going to take a little bit more of a firm hand, right?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's not you effing idiot, you blah blah. It's
it wasn't personal. It was just bro, listen to what I'm saying. You're not getting it.
Yeah, you're not understanding it. And also too, also on the other end of that is because I do care, I'm willing to upset you.
You're willing to go through that discomfort.
Yes.
So that's because there's growth.
Yes, because I know that it will be better for you, and because I do care. I when coaches say, I care about you enough to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
I love you enough to not let you eat ice cream every night and tell you that you're going to be big and strong and this is what's best for you, right?
Yeah.
I know, again, the Bible says the same thing, right? Too, God loves you enough to discipline you, right? If he didn't, again, if you didn't love your kid or it's somebody else's kid and X, Y, and Z and you didn't care about them and you're yeah, that kid's, for example, we care enough where I'm going to yell at any random person that's about to step in front of a train.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It might scare you. It might upset you. It might all these things. Yo, dude, there's a train. You're about to get hit by this bus, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of it too, as well as as a coach, as a leader, as all these things. There's actually another book called I think it's called Leadership Pain, right? Which is talking about the higher levels you go in leadership, the more painful it is.
Yeah.
The more you're in responsible for more people, you're going to upset more people. You're going to be more misunderstood.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make really hard decisions that nobody wants to make, which is why you're in that seat, because other people can't handle being responsible and doing the hard things that that are necessary with that. And again, as a player, you need to do that too. Any high performer is going to have to do that. And again, the same thing as well. Guess what? There's a lot of people that can hit the same pitching, all the stuff, if there was just no lights, no cameras, and not 40,000 people in an away stadium that everybody wants you to do. They can't handle being a professional from that way. And that's really grueling as an athlete when it comes into performance, because it's not just, it's a lot easier to hit when there's 6 people in the stands and you're playing at College of the Siskiyous and no one cares about your stats. But when you don't hit tonight and it was in a big situation, and you're Alex Bregman and you're whatever, and they're writing articles about you, and it's all over the news and all over social media, and all the fans are going crazy because you're in Boston. Can you handle the lights of New York? Can you handle those other things? Because performance is a lot more than just how I move, how good, talented I am at these other things. Like, there's obviously a much bigger dynamic that's part of it,
I think a huge piece of the whole thing is like having a long-term perspective on it. And it's the same in not getting stuck in the now, because like being in the now is great for certain aspects, but it's like, it's the same reason why like you're getting stuck in the small town. You don't see the big picture. If you have a long-term mentality, like for example, I just wrote about this, or like had a conversation. I talked to ChatGPT as you did.
Great on
about it. About like pressure, or like that exactly. Like at bats in the 9th inning. So like, and if I look at it like this, if I go into that at bat in the 9th inning going like, holy cow, if I get a hit, like everybody's gonna go crazy. If I don't, like I'm gonna be, this is gonna suck, this and that. Like, what's he gonna think? What's he gonna think? What's he gonna think? And I put, and I go, this one's life or death right here. This one's life or death. And I'm so stuck on this. That's the only one I see. Then I'm gonna really struggle, because I'm gonna put more pressure on myself and I'm not gonna do well. And then the next time, 2 weeks later, I get another bottom of the 9th at bat, and I do the same exact thing, and I'm going to struggle. And then before I know it, just by looking at that one at bat at a time, I'm batting 180 with runners in scoring position in the 9th, right? Versus if I look at it at the long-term perspective, like, look, this at bat, I might get out. But if I go into it with a quality mindset of like, and do the things I need to do to get that hit over the long term, I'll be clutch, And like one of my teammates, remember it specifically because one of the coolest things about redshirting was being able to be in it enough to where I could hear the locker room conversations, I could see the stuff, but I was detached to where because I traveled, I wasn't playing, so I didn't have that ego like stuck on it. Was that he had multiple, because I like was keeping track of it, like. He's one of our best players, like one of our leaders. But early on in the season, he had multiple like bases loaded at bats. They're all 3 of the at bats I'm gonna bring up were all bases loaded, like confirmed, because that was like when I really took note of it. Anytime it's bases loaded, even if there's no outs, it's like that's a big at bat, And so he popped out one of that the first time I saw it, and I remember thinking, and you can feel it, like he goes like and everybody else goes like, are we serious? Come on. But then. Then the next time, similar at bat, does the same thing, strikes out looking to end the inning in like this game where we're losing to a team we shouldn't be losing to, and it just brings the whole, everybody's like, and if you get so stuck and attached to that, it's going to really hurt you for the next one. Well, then this is the craziest game I've ever been a part of. We bottom of the 8th inning, 2 outs, and we were down 8-0. We scored 10 runs with 2 outs in the 8th inning. And he hit a grand slam with 2 outs in the 8th inning to put us up. It was 8-6 at the time. Like the most nuts I've ever seen a dugout like and been a part of. But it's because he's a really mature player. Like he doesn't let that stuff get to him. He's a really good leader. Like a really like, and because he was able to like stay consistent, I'm the only person that took note because I wasn't playing of those 2 other at bats. Everybody just remembers Ian like, yeah, he's clutch. Like. Remember that at bat against Sierra when he hit that bump? Like that was crazy, bro. So like you can earn that reputation just by having that long-term mindset. Or the same thing, if you were to get like, say you got stuck for like our situation, you got stuck on saying like, I don't want to hurt his feelings right now, or I don't want to like make a little tension here. Okay, so I'm not going to do it this time. Well, then over time I'm going to go like, I mean, he helped me a little bit, but not really. Versus now, if you have that long-term mindset where you didn't get stuck on it, said, look, if I do this every time and look at the process, well, now look where we're sitting and talking, and I'm looking at you like, dang, you really saw it before. You saw the whole picture that I didn't see. And I'm like, it's really cool to like look at it like that, and now have like utmost like, I mean, I've always like admired or respected you, but like now I have that more of it as like personal because I had that experience of like seeing you in action and seeing you be able to do that, and like it's like putting stuff on the line. I might not get a hit this at bat, and I have to deal with that. But I trust that if I put myself in the position to do it every time, and I trust and say that's the win, not if I actually get the hit, but like the win was, did I handle my emotions correctly? Did I detach really? Like, did I not get stuck in that small town, that right now mindset? Was I able to detach, control my emotions, and play present?
Yeah.
If I do, and trust that if I do that enough, it'll work itself out in the long term.
Yeah.
You know? And so like, that's the biggest thing I think is, and that's the same thing of like, keep in mind, who are you becoming? It's not so much about right now.
Yeah.
Like, I might go this fall that like really like change my swing or change a lot of philosophies. I'm not like that same comfortable player where I really know who I am. So it might take a little bit of ups and downs of me figuring out, but by the spring, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be in a really good position to have success because of the downs that I was willing to take to get that up, with the long-term mindset of like who I'm becoming in mind, more than like what's comfortable, what's safe, what's like the best right now.
Yeah.
You know?
And even in the rights of that too is just going like, again, the other one, the video I posted the other day too, where you're talking about like Mike Tyson in the same way. It's like,
saw that,
he doesn't care if you beat him. Like, that's not the point. Like, again, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like the same, like the guy that's going to set the record for the longest distance walked loves walking. And they just go walking, and guess what? The byproduct is success. Like Nick Saban says it all the time, is that his byproduct is the win.
Yeah.
It's not the goal. It's not the point. Practice and what you're doing now and mastery and all these other things. Guess what? It's just feedback. I go in the game and I get okay, well, let's say you struggle the fall, you struggle in the spring. All of that is feedback, right? And you should just be continuing to make adjustments rather than going, well, if I'm not good by this time, or if this doesn't happen, and I've set up these like lines, right? Where it's like, because I did that when I played, right? It's like, oh, well, you know, like this would mean this. When in reality, like, again, they're not defining. And instead, it's just feedback. You make adjustments, you learn. And ultimately, it's all good things, because you grow either way, even through the pit. And you're like, well, you know, I thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player, and now I'm not, so I failed. And it's like, dude, I played, like, again, I sometimes have to remind myself, like, oh yeah, I did do, you know, top 3%, and no one of all baseball players. Yeah. I got in the top 3%. That's pretty damn good.
It's really good,
You know, like, that's pretty damn good, right? And it's like, okay, now, I felt like I always failed because I was with other 3%ers that, and some of them were 1%ers or 0.6%ers or whatever, right? That went on and did all these other things, but that's who I was comparing myself to, rather than, dude, there's 97% of these people will never play at this level. It's just like, so a lot of times too, it's like, you know, you get within those environments and not understanding, and also too, my failures are what set up, they are part of who I became. I had to fail. And also too, like, me failing made me learn more, made me want to do all these other things. If all that stuff wouldn't have happened, right, then you don't become, you know, who you're going to become anyway. So all of it is a blessing in that same way. And instead of saying it needs to be looked like this, I need to have a championship, I need to get drafted, I need to go Division I, I need to go blah, blah, blah. You know, all those things are all, doesn't really matter. And that's what I'm saying, like, what we talk about a lot too, like I said, is when you come in to train, you know, that's why I call specifically. And every time I've had any strength coaches and all other things, they're used to calling it, when we talk about this, they're used to calling everything strength and conditioning. And I say, no, we're strength and performance. Because it's not about just raw skills or doing whatever. Our job is performance. So that might, does that mean that it's X's and O's and how you move and movement and data and all? Yes. It also is your mentality. It's also how you think, how you respond to failures. What is the main reasons? And also as a coach where it's personal. Again, for example, when I was getting on you that day, was I getting on you because you're not moving well? No. Was I getting on you was I getting on you because you weren't eager, you weren't training hard enough, or you weren't
didn't want it enough?
No, none of that, right? It had more to do with things that I knew were going to lead you astray. If you keep doing these things, and the mentality, the thought process, the loops that you're in, and how you continue to do this is what that leads to. And my job is to make that apparent to you, to help you see what you can't see, right? So that, again, you don't go that direction. And that's, again, on the other note of that is, at the end of the day, I always say, if I say my piece, right, and you still go that way, at least you know when you go that way, it's like if I knew you were about to walk off a cliff and I didn't say anything, it's like, damn, bro, you saw me walking off a cliff and you didn't say anything. Even at the moment, if I did say something and you're like, bro, I was fine, I'm good. Yeah, all the things, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, at least, you know, on the other end of that, like, you know, in the moment, I may be the asshole. But later on the other side of that, it's like, well, damn, like, you know, I'd rather be the asshole than watch you walk off a cliff. For sure. Like, you know, so that's more of those things, I think, in that same way where, you know, a lot of people are not willing to do that. And also too, like, again, you don't think running a business and doing all those other things, like, again, 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, 99 in the first 10. You know, again, so we're closing in on the 1% again. We're probably in the 3% again, right? So again, as we do that, at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of, I've had to fire best friends. I've had to end relationships with, you know, multiple different things and people across the industry that used to be really close. Like there's a lot of things as I've grown, as the business has grown, as like I've had to become a different person. I've had to grow in multiple different ways. I've made billions of mistakes. I make tons of mistakes every single day. I'm learning if every moment is a definer rather than just feedback so I can just adjust and move forward. Nick Saban got fired countless times. Michael Jordan missed Mr. Clutch, has missed more shots than people have ever even taken in those situations, and he's known as Mr. Clutch. So at the end of the day, if you look at it as feedback and you just keep learning, put your head down, all of a sudden you look up 10 years later, you're like, oh, I literally, the other day I was looking at the video and me talking to Brock about that and saying, dude, so you wanted to go do and you want to achieve something that only 0.3% of people in the world that play baseball, only baseball, achieve, but you're assuming that you're not going to fail? Yeah. You're assuming that this is going to be easy? You're assuming that you were just going to walk through here and not have to go through anything? Like you doing it and it's worth achieving because it is hard. Yeah. So at the end of the day, again, you could have the top coaches, you could have the top this, you could have the top whatever. At the end of the day, with all of that, you still could break your ankle, you still could end your career, you still could just it not be in your cards, right? Yeah. And there's plenty of players that have played at the highest level in college, Wake Forest, X, Y, and Z, batted over 300, had crazy stats, 20 home runs, and didn't get drafted. Yeah. And I think that's why it's super important to like keep the person you're becoming in mind, because at the end of the day, it's not about, you know, Alex Hormozy. Yep. So he has a cool thing that I saw that was like his first business that he really ever built, like his coolest accomplishment was really attached to it. Like something went down when he like sold it or something and lost a ton of money. Yeah. And he said, man, the last 8 years were a waste because that's how long it took to build that money. And then he realized, because then he immediately built another business, he realized that it wasn't about the money that he was building the person that could build a business the whole time. He was building a person that could handle failing and losing a whole business. Yeah. So it's like, it's about who you're becoming. So like, I would bet, or I would hope that if, as long as you don't get too attached to like what happens to you, that the guy that hit 300 with 20 homers at Wake Forest that didn't get drafted is still going to come out better because he's the type of person that could handle the failure of not getting drafted and then still go do something. As long as you don't get too attached in the now and you look at, and that's like a really cool mindset I like is a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Have you read that? Yeah. It's everything's in your best interest. So like we have this way, I think, and I saw a video on it, was like we as humans have a way of like looking back on our failures or looking back at our old self and kind of saying like, oh, okay, like I see why that happened now, or like almost like fondly remembering it, even though it sucked, like almost looking at back like, well, I wouldn't be where I was now without it. Like now I understand it now, or I see why that was beneficial, or like I'm actually happy that happened to me. We kind of have a way of naturally doing that. And so if we can think about our future self looking back on us now, we're going to understand like, as long as you stay with the long term in mind and don't get too stuck right now, you're going to grow. And so if you have that in mind, you start to believe like no matter what happens, it's in my best interest. It's going to bring growth. It's going to bring me closer to that person I want to be, that ultimate thing that I want to be. And at the end of the day, it's like, who do you want to be? It's not really, and to me, that's the essence of like mentality is like, and that's kind of like I'm sure you've heard of like stoicism. People get that mixed up. It's like, it's really about surrendering that you don't have control of your life
And that even if if you've read The Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, like I kind of use this reference to one of my buddies was like, I hope that if for some reason there was some Holocaust and I was Jewish and I was taken into a camp, that there could be a general like looking me in the eyes while not feeding me, not doing all this stuff, not whatever, like taking away every one of my rights and everything that I wanted or attached to, but it was out of my control, or like even holding a gun to my face and wanting me to like whimper and cower, that I'd be looking at him straight back in the eyes. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that I control is my mentality and how I think about things, and how in that book is like the time between stimulus and reaction is where you have control, and that's the only place you have control. So like the time between something that happens in your life and then the time, and then when you decide to act on it, that's the time when you have control. So it's like, I would hope that I would be saying like, I still control my reaction. Like you could kill me right now, but I'm going to go out looking you dead in the eye and not cowering and praying that you don't, you know? And it's like, and I thought it was just insanely powerful. Was like, you could take away everything from me, but I'm still going to control myself. Like you'll never be able to break me. And then that also relates, which is really cool, to like that pressure of like the 40,000 fans or the media writes about you. It's like, if you stayed attached and you understand like, what do I think about myself? What do I believe about myself? Like, am I bigger than that or am I smaller than that? Like, oh my God, it's the World Series. Am I built for this? Or it'll be like, bro, I could have the whole world think I'm a failure and still believe in myself. And that's the actual win. Or like, for me, like if I go 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, but somehow, some way still hold on to like, it's like, this is good for me, or like, and not lose faith in myself or whatever. Like, it's actually the act of like striking out and walking back with your head up and like saying like, even a strikeout can't get to me. Like you could strike me out 30 times straight and you're not going to see me fold. You could send me back down. You could cut me. You could do this and I'm not going to fold, and I'm still going to pursue what I want to pursue. And I'm still going to choose what I want to do with my life and how I want to spend it. Like you could throw me in a hole, not feed me, do this, and I'm still going to choose how I want to go about my business. And that's look you dead in the eye and like, you know, it's like owning your life. And so it's like that World Series at bat is like, is the World Series owning me or am I owning the World Series? Like I could fail in the World Series and I could be the most unclutched player of all time and still like look you in the eye and say like own it, you know, like, and say, because the time between stimulus and then your response is like, that's where your power is. And so that's like the essence of like life, I think, is like mentality, or like, who do you like, just like who you are, you know? Yeah,
and I think the big thing is with that is like foundationally, like, again, it's like the old quote, right? Like you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training, or you sink to who you are, right? And at your root when no one's around and with the things. And also too, the one thing I would have said too as well is like, my biggest failures happened from 20 to 30. You know, my biggest setbacks happened the older I got. And also too, then when I talk to people at 40, they're like, my biggest failures happened from 30 to 40. Right. And what I mean by that too is, when I've sat in some of these rooms with some of these biggest business, you know, people with some of the biggest, you know, business mindsets, right? Like, or biggest businesses, they would often tell me too, like, I don't know if you're allowed to sit at this table if you haven't at least had one business that's gone bankrupt. You know?
Yeah.
And you would think, oh, these guys have never failed. That's why they had the biggest businesses, X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, no. Like, again, I always say, like, I trust the captain that's been through tough waters, that's navigated storms, that's actually gone through that. Not the guy that thinks he's a high-level captain, but a guy that's actually weathered them, and also, too, is like, hey, I've been in this scenario before. Like, you know, this has happened, and this is how we responded to it, and X, Y, and Z. And, yeah, we didn't come out clean, but I learned a bunch in the process, and, you know, all these other things. And I think, you know, with that is everybody wants to skip that process where they don't want to be cut. right? They want to shine bright like a diamond, right? But you know what I'm saying? But they don't want to be cut like a diamond.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So with it is you got to go through the fire, and you got to get refinement, and there is pain, and there is moments you doubt in yourself, and there is I messed up here, and also too, as you mentioned, right? Yes, there is a general sense, if we process it well, where we can look back on our things and go, oh, this is what I learned about this scenario in X, Y, and Z, and this is why this probably happened. But also too, there is a large community of people out there that will never know why they made that mistake and they lost that friendship and their brother was killed and their X, Y, and Z, and their understanding never comes.
Yeah.
And now in those also scenarios of those other things too, it's like, okay, do I need to understand, right? Do I need to put the pieces together and go that this was X, Y, and Z, right? Or there's a higher level of that too as well of being like, or do I trust? And trust is a lot different than knowing.
For sure.
I don't know everything Taylor says about me when I'm not in the room, right? I don't know I don't know everything that's in her head and every thought she has and every X, Y, and Z too. But our friendship is not built on knowing.
Yeah, it's built on trust.
Our relationship is built on trust and time and all those other things too. And also in trust that if we did have falling out, how we respond, how we would talk to each other, how we would find X, Y, and Z. And also too, not by what she said she's going to do, but also what I've seen over 17 years of relationship. Right, how it would happen, and also what they've done in other relationships, how they X, Y, and Z to build something like that. You get what I'm saying? So I think also on the the other pieces with that is for me in those things of foundational is if your mentality and some of your things are built on straw huts of, like for example, I always tell people this too. Do you want to appear to be strong or be strong? Because there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things where do you want to appear to be knowledgeable or do you just want to be knowledgeable? Yeah. Do you want to appear to be a big leaguer or do you want to be a big leaguer? Yeah. Right. And at the end of the day, again, if you are, the appearance will be there. Yeah. But if you're the other one is rooted in how other people see me and that being important to me comparatively to who I actually am. Yep. And again, is it my reputation? Right? Or is it my character? And which one am I more concerned about? Right? And I think, along with that is again, that's not a natural thing for us because by human nature, we survive off community. If I'm injured, if we can't do everything on our own, it's impossible, right? We get this mentality of the lone wolf, these other things, but in reality, we need each other. Communities, you're stronger in community than you are by yourself. And so anyways, I think the pieces with that, and maybe us kind of wrapping with this side is, what would you say in totality, experience wise, right? If I could have you reflect as you're leaving here soon, right? If you could reflect on the whole thing, and again, you might have a whole nother reflection months out and other things in perspective. What would you say is your biggest takeaway in total right now, if you had to say?
Well, maybe this is because partly we're in this kind of mode of conversation, but just now, and also too, I really like talking through things, and I think that's why ChatGPT is a great resource because I learned a ton just through this conversation of just saying what I already kind of had connected in some sense, and you probably feel the same, which is I think that's why a lot of people are finding podcasts are really beneficial because you get to a deep conversation, you'll learn way more because you have to solidify ideas and make it make sense,
Yeah, for sure.
But I would say just since we're on topic, I would just say challenge your beliefs. That's the biggest thing. Or so let's say we didn't have this conversation, I would still say something similar. Would be for me personally, be willing to say that you don't know, or be willing to go into something without like the perfect idea. And I think relating like more of the baseball sense of the farm is like, that's I think a reason why a lot of people are deterred by it is because they don't know it. They don't understand it. And so like that scares them or like that makes them not want to do it. And then from a coaching perspective and a player's perspective and just like a life perspective is like, if you don't know what you don't know, if you never try to test it and get that experience, you'll never be able to like, grow. And so I think for me personally, like I came in with the mindset of like, I thought I knew the way it was going to go down and the way I was going to get better from it. And I didn't at all. And so my biggest takeaway was like really just learning about like from a really baseball lens, not so broad, learning about how, cause a lot of the stuff we do is movement based, like for baseball specific. Cause that's arguably the most important thing. And then you can build everything else around that. But, it wasn't about the actual moves. It was about how to go about getting the moves. You know what I mean? Like, how do I work the process of like feeling what I'm feeling, understanding where I'm at, understanding like where my mindset is, like understanding the process of how to get good moves. I don't really necessarily need to know how my hips need to work perfectly. I just need to understand how can I get to the place where I feel good and know they're probably working good. You know what I mean? And that was like a big thing that I talked with you about. But then also of like, Cody was like, I thought it was like, I need to know how my hips need to work. So then if I know that, well, just because I know it doesn't mean I know how to get there. You know, it's more about just like understand. I don't need to know exactly the right results or like destination, but if I have an understanding of like how to work a process a little bit, it's like the guy that loves walking, you know, I'll be in a way better position. But to kind of relate back to what you were saying about like the failure is what's going to make it possible. And kind of going back, because I kind of wanted to like reframe what I said earlier about like, it's not so much like failing in the World Series is a good thing. It's like the reason Michael Jordan was so clutch was because he could fail at it and still keep going. It's like the reason Alex Hormozi is so successful now is because he could handle losing the business. You're building the person that can handle the failure. The only way you can have the success and like long-term, like solid foundational success, not winning the lottery, is by failing. Because then you understand, and that was one of the things Cody talked, or maybe it was you, I don't remember, was like about my moves, was like, you think that's right, but you've never felt it when it's wrong, so how do you know that's right? Like, you need to feel all the ways, and then you can say what's right. But like, you need to feel it wrong before you know it's right. You can't just have been doing it the whole time and say that's right, because you never felt another way, so you don't know if that's actually wrong.
You don't have contrast.
So you need that contrast. You need to feel it in different ways, and then you needed, like Michael Jordan's so clutch because he could fail, he could handle it, he knew what that took, and that's the only way he could handle with the ball in his hand with the last shot was if he could handle the failure. That's the only way he would be able to have success. So it's like that same sense, and it all kind of like ties in together. But I would say that's like the essence of it. It's just like, I don't know, refining my process and what I believe in, and trying to like, I'm going to be continuing to like try to expand my ideas. And I think it's one of the coolest things you can do is like that growth aspect.
No, I had a and one I thought of too was if you had to pick out what you think is maybe everybody's biggest perception of us, right, of the farm, comparatively to what you've experienced, what would you say that is?
I think there's like this false, like everybody wants to be right, like in the industry, or like especially in like the baseball like swing kind of thing. Like everybody wants to say they know. And I think the biggest false perception would be that you would just think that, oh, it's Joey and Cody, just two other guys that think they know. But it's actually the opposite. Is like the difference is like, and then also the reason that you talk with conviction in the videos isn't because you just act like you know, or you're like putting on this thing because you think you know. It's because you failed, or it's because you consistently challenged, and you've got that contrast of the failure, what's right, what's wrong, or what didn't work. So now I know what does work, truly, so that you can actually say it with conviction. And it's not, a lot of people like try to say the things, the conviction, and then like egotistically like say theirs is better. But the difference is, I would say, like, or the biggest like false perception would be that like, oh, Joey and Cody are two other guys that just think they know what they're doing, or like think that they're right, you know? And it's not that at all. It's like, it's actually more like you guys are, you don't think you're right. You just think your process is better. Like you're like in 2 years, and you know this too, you're going to be somebody way different.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you're not growing. And that's one of the biggest things like in my life. And I think that would like kind of like solve, not that I know, like I don't want to appear that I know, but I feel like for me personally, like I don't ever want to coast in my life. And I feel like people can run into problems, or my friends or certain, just like people that I know can run into problems when they start to coast. And then they like lose that meaning, lose that fire, lose that, that drive. Yeah. And it's like the farm, I mean, is never going to coast. Like it's always pursuing something better. It's always pursuing like, and even if it's okay, we feel solid here, it's like, now how do we apply it? How do we do this? How do we, like, it's a never ending process. Like if you can always get 1% better, then the potential is limitless. Like that's what I tell myself too, is like, I've never been at a point in my career like where I felt like can't get better. So if I can just get 1% better, well then who's to tell me that I can't be a big leaguer? Because even if you cut me, or if I don't get drafted, well, I'll go play indie ball. And if I can just get 1% better, I mean, and this Alex Hormozi thing says, like, if you do enough volume, success becomes, what do you say, like unprobable, or there's a word, like it becomes irresponsible to say that success is not coming if you do enough volume. So if I can continue the process long enough and just strive to get that 1% better, like I think potential is limitless in whatever you do. And especially that's obvious here. And that's why it's been so cool to like a lot of these ideas are like the stuff that we've been talking about, and the stuff that I feel like kind of like my own personal thoughts and stuff. A month ago, like literally 30 days ago, or July 6th, like was not even close to where it is right now. And that is 100% because like I got this amazing experience to come do this, which is also insane. Like you just said, I'm like the only kid that's done this, or the only player that's done this. Like it just is, I mean, I just feel like it's a crazy blessing that I was able to like just like experience this whole thing. Because I would say like this business, but then just like the people surrounding it, or like that is the essence of like what I've been trying to like find, which is like striving for more, and the process of it, and how to get better at getting better, Yeah. It's been cool.
God is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I think on the same side of that, like I said, I think it's been unique in a lot of different ways, and definitely enjoy that. And I wanted to jump that on because I said, who knows? You never know. It might be the only person that ever, pull that one. But in that same way, it's just like a cool experience that just all lined up at the right time for a reason, right? So, anyways, we always end in prayer. So I'm going to knock it out with a prayer real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we just thank you so much for this time we got to spend together, and just we just ask that you help Cal drive home and travel safe, and that you continue to give him refinement, and just keep holding on to his heart, and know that you're with him, and just keep removing any of the obstacles in his path, God. We also trust that all things are blessings, and all the things that you are moving in his life, and we just ask that you continue to do your work and help him trust you and continue with his faith. We say all these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
Until next time, Farm System out.